There are some moments in life that look ordinary on the outside but end up changing everything. Moments that start quietly, maybe with a cup of coffee or the sound of a door opening. Moments that no one pays attention to until it's too late to forget them. This story begins with one of those moments, and by the time it ended, an entire town would question what kindness truly means. A manager would lose everything he thought he controlled, and for unexpected visitors would walk into a small café and freeze the whole room with nothing more than the way they stood. But before all of that, it started with a young woman named Mia Rowan. In a choice she made in the middle of a normal workday, a choice that would cost her job, shake a community, and later earn the respect of people she never imagined would even know her name. It happened at Harbor Street Diner, a humble little place on the edge of Cedar Falls, Washington. Not the kind of cafe anyone travels to on purpose. It sat between a dry cleaner and a thrift shop, its neon sign buzzing louder than the conversations inside. But at 11:15 a.m., everything inside that diner changed. The lunch rush at Harbor Street always arrived like an unexpected storm. One minute the place was quiet, the kind of quiet where you could hear the fridge hum. The next minute, chaos. Chairs scraped. Coffee cups clattered. Customers leaned over the counter, impatient and hungry, tapping their fingers like they were racing a clock only they could see. And right in the center of all this was Mia, 28 years old, tired from another long double shift, and holding herself. Together with little more than stubbornness and a friendly smile, her sneakers were still wet from the morning drizzle. Her apron smelled faintly of spilled lemonade from an hour earlier, but none of that mattered. What mattered were the 5 different voices calling her name at once. Table 4 wanted extra ketchup. The couple near the window complained their pancakes weren't fluffy enough. A toddler under table 3 kept screaming for a toy he threw himself, and behind her, the printer spat out new orders like it had a personal grudge against her. Still, Mia moved with a steady calm. She always did. People said she had a way of keeping the room from falling apart. But today, the room was definitely falling apart. Her coworker Jenny, 17 and new to the job, looked ready to burst into tears. She was 2 orders behind, and her hands shook as she tried to stack plates. Mia leaned in close, lowered her voice and whispered, "You're doing great. Don't let them see you panic. I've got your back." Jenny nodded, trying to breathe again. But not everyone in the diner appreciated Mia's kindness, because standing behind the counter, arms folded like he was guarding a kingdom that no one actually wanted, was Dean Murphy, the manager. Dean wasn't loud. He didn't need to be. He used a different kind of power, the slow, sharp, condescending kind that made people feel like they were one mistake away from being replaced. His hair was always slicked back. His face always carried a faint irritation, like the world had personally disappointed him. "Mia," he called out, voice slicing through the chatter. "Table 11 has been waiting for their check for 12 minutes. "I sent it out," she replied without turning. "Well, walk it over yourself, instead of assuming other people do their jobs." The words landed with that familiar sting. Mia didn't react. She'd learned that Dean loved provoking people. He enjoyed that tiny win where someone flinched or apologized, even when they didn't do anything wrong. She refused to give him that satisfaction. But just as she started toward the kitchen window, something caught her eye, and this was the moment everything began. Near the entrance, half inside the doorway and half still standing in the cold outside, was a thin elderly man. His clothes were soaked from the rain. His coat was frayed at the sleeves. His white hair clung to his forehead in messy strands, and one of his boots was untied, the laces dragging. He looked lost. Not the kind of lost where someone took a wrong turn. The kind of lost where someone hasn't felt grounded in years. Nobody else noticed him. Customers were glued to their phones or arguing over receipts. Dean was too busy criticizing someone, but Mia saw him. And that alone would soon shift the entire direction of the day. She stepped toward him gently. "Sir," she said softly, "are you all right?" He blinked a few times, like his mind was trying to catch up to his surroundings. I was supposed to meet someone here," he murmured. "I think." His voice was raspy, fragile, worn. A faded dog tag peeked out from under his coat, and on the left side of his jacket was an old military patch washed out by time, but still carrying the weight of history. "You hungry?" Mia asked. He hesitated, then gave a small nod. "I could eat something warm." She already knew what the diner's rule was. No freebies. Ever. Dean had a sign in the break room that said, "We are a business, not a charity." But right now, that didn't matter. Not when this man looked like warmth itself was a stranger to him. Mia guided him to an empty booth by the window. She even fetched a forgotten blanket from the lost tan-found box and draped it over his shoulders. Then she went to the register, pulled $12 from her own tips money she absolutely needed and slipped it in. "Order for one," she called to the cook. "Beef stew, cornbread, extra gravy?" The cook, Luis, raised an eyebrow, but didn't question her. He'd worked long enough with Mia to know she never did anything without good reason. Mia delivered the plate herself. Along with warm water and a gentle smile, the old man stared at the food like it was something rare, something sacred. "Thank you," he whispered. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes," Mia said softly. "I did." But behind her, something shifted. A presence, a shadow, a tightening of energy in the room. Dean was watching, and from the way his jaw clenched, Mia knew this wasn't going to end quietly, but she had no idea that what would happen next wouldn't. Just end her job, it would bring 4 unexpected figures through those doors, freeze the entire diner in shock, and push a whole town into choosing sides. And this was only the beginning. Dean's voice cut through the diner before Mia even turned around. "So," he said loudly enough for half the room to hear, "you want to explain what that was?" Mia froze. She didn't need to look at him to feel the heat of his anger. Conversations near the counter softened. A couple of customers turned in their seats. She faced him slowly. "He was cold," she said. "Hungry?" "I paid for the meal myself." Dean stepped closer, the corners of his mouth twitching into a smile that wasn't a smile at all. "That's not the point, Mia. You don't get to decide who eats here for free." "I didn't give him anything for free," she replied. "I covered it." "You covered a meal for a stranger who didn't order. Do you know how that looks? Like we're handing out food to anyone who wanders in off the street. This is a restaurant, not a shelter." A woman pushing a stroller paused near the pastry display. A man at the corner table slid out his earbuds, waiting. Mia kept her voice steady. "He's a veteran, Dean, and he looked like he needed help." Dean leaned in, lowering his tone to something sharp and controlled. "You don't run this place. You follow rules. And when you don't, there are consequences." "Dock my pay then," Mia said. "Write me up. But don't turn this into a scene." "Oh, a scene," Dean said loudly, spinning toward the customers. "If anyone here needs a free meal, apparently Mia is covering them today. Just ask her. She's got everyone taken care of." The diner fell into sudden stillness. Forks hovered midair. Luis stopped wiping the counter. Jenny froze behind the drink station. Even the old man in the booth looked up, confused and trembling. Mia's cheeks burned, not from shame, but humiliation, the kind that sinks into your bones when someone strips away your dignity in front of strangers. Dean wasn't finished. "You're done, Mia," he said. "Turn in your apron and get out." For a moment, her mind went blank. No warning, no conversation. Just an execution in the middle of a lunch rush. The old man's voice cracked as he tried to speak. "She didn't do anything wrong." I didn't mean to cause, sir," Dean snapped, waving him away. "Please stay out of staff matters. Eat your food." But the old man didn't sit. His shaking hands reached into his coat. Slowly, he pulled out a small metal pin, worn down at the edges, but unmistakable in its meaning. A purple heart. He set it gently on the table as if placing down a memory too heavy to hold. "I served in Da Nang," he whispered. "Most of my unit never came home. My boys. They would never let this stand." Dean rolled his eyes. "And what is that supposed to mean?" Before Mia could step in, the old man said something softer, almost to himself. "They'll know I'm not alone." Then he lowered himself back into the booth, quiet but resolute. Mia removed her apron, folded it with trembling hands, and placed it on the counter. She didn't cry, not here, not in front of him. Luis peeked from the kitchen. "This isn't right," he muttered. Dean shot him a warning glare. "You want to go too?" Luis shrugged, muttering, "Just saying." Mia walked past the old man and gently touched his shoulder. "It's okay," she whispered. "None of this is your fault." But he shook his head, eyes cloudy. "They'll come," he murmured again. "They always come." Mia didn't know what that meant. Not yet. She stepped outside into the gray drizzle, her hoodie instantly soaked through. She stood at the bus stop, clutching her apron like a memory she didn't want but couldn't let go of. Inside the diner, Dean strutted behind the counter, pretending he'd won something. But the customers whispered. 2 got up and left without ordering. A woman near the bar quietly angled her phone. Recording, the old man ate slowly, spite heavy with something that looked like both gratitude and grief. Dean didn't notice. He was too busy rearranging napkins, complaining, snapping at Jenny when she dropped a fork. But then the diner door opened, not with the usual jingle. This time it felt like the room exhaled. 4 figures stepped inside. Not young recruits. Not casual visitors. Men whose presence drew every eye in the room. 4 Marines. Broad shoulders. Clean uniforms. Quiet authority in every step. The diner fell silent. Even the grills seemed to stop sizzling. The man in front carried himself with the calm power of someone who'd seen too much to waste words. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on the old man in the corner. "Sir," he said with quiet respect, "we got your message." A ripple of confusion passed through the room. The veteran turned slowly, eyes clearer than before. "I didn't mean to make trouble," he murmured. "But she got fired for helping me?" The Marine nodded once. "We heard, and we're here to make sure it doesn't go unanswered." Dean stepped out from behind the counter, plastering on a fake smile. "Gentlemen, welcome to Harbor Street Diner. What can I—" The second Marine cut him off with just a look. "You the manager?" "And I'd appreciate if you didn't interfere with," the third Marine spoke, voice cool as stone. "From what we hear, one of your staff showed more humanity in 1 minute than most people manage in a year." Dean's smile cracked. "This is a business. We have rules." The Marine captain stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "You humiliated a woman for showing kindness to a veteran who served this country. And you did it in front of a room full of people." Dean's voice faltered. "It wasn't personal." "Sure looked personal," the Marine replied. A customer near the front finally spoke. "She's the only reason I come here," he said. "She remembers my order. She treats people right," another added. "She's kinder than anyone else working here, including you." Jenny stepped forward, voice shaking. "She helped me close when I was new. She walked me to my car on late shifts. She's the reason I didn't quit." Dean looked around for support, but no one backed him. No one. Luis reappeared from the kitchen, apron already off. "I'm taking my break," he said. "Might be a long one." The old veteran wiped his eyes, overwhelmed. "I didn't mean for any of this." The Marine captain rested a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't cause trouble, sir? You reminded us what matters." But the tension wasn't done growing. Because outside, Mia was still sitting at the bus stop, unaware of everything unfolding inside, and something else was already heading toward the diner. Something that would push the story even further, deeper, and louder than anyone expected. The next twist was only minutes away, and when it arrived, the entire town would feel its impact. Jenny burst through the diner doors so quickly, the bell almost tore loose from the frame. Rain clung to her hair and her shoes squeaked against the floor as she scanned the room in panic. "Mia." She shouted toward the street. "Mia, please come back inside." Her voice cracked, loud enough to halt every whisper in the diner. Outside, Mia hesitated. She didn't want more humiliation, not another scene, not another moment of Dean acting like he owned her life. But the desperation in Jenny's voice made her stand up from the bus bench. "What happened now?" she asked as Jenny reached her. You need to see this," Jenny said, breath shaky. "It's not what you think." Inside, The diner felt like a pressure cooker. The Marines hadn't moved. Dean looked cornered, pacing behind the register with a forced half-smile that fooled no one. Customers watched with a mix of curiosity and righteous fury. When Mia stepped through the doorway, something unexpected happened. People began clapping, not loud, not dramatic. Just a quiet ripple, soft, deliberate, respectful. She froze, stunned. Dean's face went red. "What are you doing back in here?" he snapped. "I told you I'm not here for the job," Mia said, cutting him off gently. "I'm here because a man deserved a meal. And because kindness shouldn't need permission." A murmur of agreement spread across the room. One Marine nodded at her. "Ma'am," he said, "you didn't just help him. You gave him dignity. That matters more than you know." Dean scoffed. "Oh, come on," he barked. "She didn't save anyone's life. She gave away beef stew. She gave away decency," the Marine captain replied. "And you punished her for it." A woman near the pie display stepped forward. Her name was Linda, a hairdresser whose shop sat 2 doors down. "I've watched how you treat your workers for years, Dean," she said. "You leave passive-aggressive notes. You threaten people over tiny mistakes. Don't pretend you fired her because of a meal. You fired her because she embarrassed your ego," Dean exploded. "This is ridiculous. I built this place. I put in the work. I put in the hours." Luis stepped out of the kitchen fully this time, wiping his hands on a rag. Apron tossed aside. "You didn't build anything alone," he said. "We kept this place standing. We took the late nights. We took your attitude. And the one person who made the diner feel human, your best worker, you threw her out like trash." This time someone clapped louder. Then someone else. Dean's face twisted. "This is mutiny." He yelled. "It's accountability," said the Marine with the scar. Dean threw his hands up. "What? You all think she's some kind of saint?" Still no one spoke. Not one person defended him. Then, from the corner, a quiet voice rose. "I want to say something." It came from Omar, the dishwasher. 17 years old, shy, always with his headphones in. Most customers barely noticed him. Dean glared. "Unless it's about washing dishes," but Omar kept going. "I was in the back when she helped that man," he said. "She didn't sneak anything. She paid with her own money. You fired her anyway." Dean opened his mouth, but Omar lifted his chin slightly. "And you know what else?" he continued. "She's the only one here who ever asks if I need a ride home. Nobody else even knows where I live." The room absorbed that. A kid who barely spoke, speaking with more courage than the manager ever had. "If she's not good enough to work here," Omar said, voice steady now, "then maybe I'm not either. You quitting?" Dean demanded. "I don't know," Omar answered calmly. "But I know I'm not scared of you anymore." A man at the counter older. Rugged, a long-haul trucker named Lenny stood, reached for his wallet, and dropped a 20 on the counter. "That's for the veteran," he said. "And for the waitress who should still be here?" He walked out. Then another customer stood and left money behind. And another. And another. A soft exodus, one by one, draining the diner of support, leaving only the realization of how deeply Dean had misjudged the moment. Dean looked around desperately as the room emptied. "This is insane," he shouted. "You people need me. Without me, this place falls apart." "No," Luis said simply. "Without her, it already has." The Marine captain stepped forward, addressing Dean directly. "You didn't just fire someone," he said. "You showed this entire room who you are." And they responded. Before Dean could argue, the diner door chimed again. A man entered, steady posture, navy jacket, sharp haircut. Someone many in the room recognized, Charlie Fenner, local contractor who supported veterans around Cedar Falls. He walked straight toward Mia. "I heard what happened," he said warmly. "And if you're not already snapped up by someone else, I'd be honored to offer you a job at our community center." Mia blinked, overwhelmed. "Why? Why would you offer that to me?" Charlie smiled. "Because the veteran you helped? His name is Henry Fenner. He's my uncle. And he told us exactly who you are." Dean looked stunned. Charlie continued. Better pay. Better hours. Real respect around them. More and more customers filtered out the door, leaving Dean standing in the quiet ruins of his own making. But the story wasn't finished, not even close, because outside, people were already pulling out phones. Someone had recorded the entire confrontation, and by nightfall, the whole town would be talking about Mia Rowan. The part that came next would reach far beyond Cedar Falls. It would ripple through social media. It would divide opinions. It would force Dean to face consequences he never imagined, and it would take Mia somewhere she never expected to end up. What happened next would shake the diner, spark a movement, and bring strangers. From across the country into the story, everything was about to get louder. Everything was about to unfold in ways none of them could predict. That night, the town didn't fall asleep the way it usually did. Because by evening, the video was everywhere, the shaky clip recorded by the woman near. The bar showed it all, Dean firing Mia in front of customers. The veteran sitting silently with his worn-out coat. The Marine standing firm in the middle of the diner. The crowd turning against the manager. People watched it once. Then again. Then they shared it. Within hours, the clip spread through Cedar Falls. Then through nearby towns. Then into veteran groups. Then across social media where opinions turned into storms. The phone at Harbor Street Diner wouldn't stop ringing. Dean thought it was orders at first, but every call carried the same tone: cold, sharp, judgmental. Some callers were furious. Some were disgusted. Some were just curious, and all of them wanted to talk about one person, Mia Rowan. Dean's face tightened more. Every time the phone rang, across town, Mia sat in her small studio apartment, legs curled under her on the couch. She hadn't spoken much since she got home. Her phone buzzed, non-stop texts from Jenny Louise, her older sister, and numbers she didn't recognize. Jenny finally sent the video link at first. Mia didn't want to watch it. She felt the sting of earlier so deeply that the idea of reliving it made her stomach twist. But curiosity eventually pushed through the hesitation. She pressed play. There she was, standing in the diner. Shock on her face, her voice steady, even when she felt like breaking. There were the customers defending her. There were the Marines quietly confronting Dean. Their words firm but calm. Then she heard her own voice through the tiny speaker. Her voice saying, "I'm here because I'm tired of acting like kindness needs permission." She didn't even remember phrasing it that way. It didn't sound like a speech. It sounded like the truth slipping out of her before she could manage it. Her chest tightened. Not from sadness, but from a strange, unfamiliar feeling. Pride. She placed her phone down gently and breathed in. For once, she didn't doubt herself. Not one bit. But the world wasn't done with her, because an email notification pinged. Then another. Then 5 more. A few were local reporters. One was from a podcast. Another from a veteran support network in Oregon. But one message held a subject line that made her sit up straighter. Job opportunities stand with us. It was from Jordan Malik, the operations director at the Fenner Veterans Resource Center. She opened it. The email spoke of gratitude, of respect, of hearing the story not from a viral clip, but directly from Henry, the man she had fed. He had told them about her kindness, how she didn't hesitate, how she didn't care about rules, only about people, how she saw him when others didn't. Jordan wrote, "We are expanding our team and looking for someone with heart, humility, and judgment. Henry says you have all 3. If you're interested, we'd be honored to have you join us." Mia stared at the screen, swallowing hard. Someone was offering her a place. Not because she begged for it, not because she needed a job, but because they valued who she was. She called the number at the bottom. Jordan answered on the first ring. "Mia Rowan," said warmly. "I was hoping you'd call. Is this offer real?" she asked hesitantly. "More real than you know," he replied. Henry doesn't usually speak this much. But today, you were all he wanted to talk about. Mia smiled for the first time since leaving the diner. They spoke for 20 minutes. Jordan described the center, what they did, who they helped, what her role would be. He didn't pressure her. He didn't rush her. He simply said, "You've already shown us who you are. Let us show you the kind of place that deserves you." She said yes, not because she needed a job, but because she wanted a purpose. The next morning, Mia woke with a strange mix of nerves and hope. She pulled herself together, took the same bus she always took, but everything around her felt different. The air felt lighter. The world felt bigger. Her steps felt firmer. The Fenner Center was a welcoming place. Warm lamps, soft chairs, walls lined with photos of veterans smiling with their families. People greeted her like they'd known her for years. Someone had even taped a printed screenshot of the viral video on a bulletin board. Right under it, written in black marker, "You don't punish people for being decent." She pressed her hand to her chest. Henry was sitting in the lobby, his hands wrapped around a warm cup of coffee. Staring at a crossword puzzle he wasn't solving. "You made it," he said with a soft smile. "Yeah," she whispered, sitting beside him. "I did." But while Mia stepped into something new and hopeful, Harbor Street Diner was sinking under the weight of choices made in anger. By Monday, café was almost empty. The regulars were gone. Most seats stayed cold. The familiar chatter had disappeared. Dean hovered behind the counter, shoulders tense, voice hollow, pride burning away hour by hour. He glanced at Facebook. At the comments flooding in under his weak apology post, "We regret any misunderstandings." People weren't buying it. You didn't regret anything until the receipts stopped printing. You lost the heart of your diner when you fired her? Step down. Dean. A petition circulated over 15,000 signatures demanding new management. Dean tried to shrug it off, but the truth pressed down on him. He wasn't in control anymore. People had seen what he did, and once people see something clearly, you can't make them unsee it. One by one, staff walked out. Customers turned away. The phones rang with anger instead of orders, and for the first time since he took over the diner, Dean Murphy felt a fear he didn't understand, the fear of no longer being the one people listened to. Meanwhile, it's the Veterans Center. Mia was helping an older woman fill out housing forms when someone unfamiliar stepped through the door. A woman in her early 50s, dressed sharply, clutching her bag in a way that said she didn't usually wander into community centers. She approached the front desk. "I'm looking for Mia Rowan," she said. Mia wiped her hands on a paper towel and stepped forward. "That's me." The woman exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath for hours. "My name is Elaine Marks," she said. I'm Dean's business partner. Or I guess I should say I was." Mia stiffened. Elaine looked embarrassed, ashamed even. "I didn't know what happened until last night," she said softly. "I saw the video. I saw everything. And I realized I can't be connected to that diner anymore. Or to him." Mia nodded, unsure what to say. Elaine continued, voice shaking a little. "The cafe is going up for sale. I've already started the paperwork. I should have stepped in sooner. I'm sorry." Mia stared at her, caught off guard by the sincerity in the woman's tone. Before leaving, Elaine handed her a small envelope. "I know this can't fix anything," she said, "but it's from me personally, not the diner. No strings attached." Mia didn't open it immediately. She slipped it into her bag and returned to work. There were people to help. There were stories to listen to. There were lives she could touch later that night. She sat alone in her apartment and finally opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note and a cashier's check for $5,000. Mia covered her mouth, overwhelmed not because of the money, because someone had seen her worth. Someone believed she deserved better as she sat with the letter. She scrolled through the comments under the video again. One message stopped her cold. "She's the reminder that good people still exist. Her name is Mia Rowan. What if we were all just a little more like her?" Her eyes shimmered, because it wasn't about going viral. It wasn't about a fight. It wasn't about punishment. It was about kindness. One small act that rippled out further than anyone imagined. But the ripple wasn't finished yet. A final wave was still coming. One that would bring the story full circle and leave Mia with a truth she didn't know she needed. The Fenner Center was settling into its quiet evening rhythm when the truth Mia needed most finally found its way to her. The sky outside had turned shades of gold and fading blue. Most of the staff had packed up for the night, and the last visitors drifted out with slow, tired steps. Only a few low lights remained on, spreading a soft warmth across the lobby. Mia sat at her desk finishing paperwork, the kind of quiet work that made the world feel softer. A printer hummed gently nearby. Pen scratches filled the small space. For the first time all day, her mind felt still. Across the lobby, Henry sat in his usual chair near the window, a blanket over his knees, nursing a cup of tea someone had insisted on making for him. He looked peaceful, lost in a memory, but calmer than the day she met him. "You need anything before I lock up?" she asked, walking over. He shook his head with that same gentle smile. No, just thinking." "About what?" she asked. "Back then," he replied quietly, "when I was in country, you didn't survive without trusting the men beside you. Didn't matter what they believed or where they came from, only mattered if they had your back." Mia leaned against the wall, watching him. "I'm not sure I did anything special." "You fed a cold, hungry man without expecting praise," he said. "That's rarer than you think." She didn't speak right away. Her voice finally came, soft and honest. "I used to wonder if I mattered," she said. "I worked hard, tried to be kind. But I always felt like one wrong move and I'd be tossed aside. Disposable." He returned his head, meeting her eyes with surprising clarity. "People like you keep the world standing," he said. Quietly, without applause. That manager? He thought power came from ordering people around. But real respectorial power is what folks say about you when you're not in the room. She smiled, unable to stop herself. "You ever think about writing a book?" she asked. He chuckled. "Nah, I just lived long enough to know what matters." They sat in silence for a moment, but it wasn't empty. It felt whole. Then she finally asked the question that had been sitting in her for days. "Did you really call those Marines after I left the diner?" Henry shook his head slowly. "I didn't have to." Her eyebrows lifted. "One of them checks on me every Sunday." I told him what happened. Told him a good woman lost her job for doing something simple and right. So that alone brought all four of them. "No," he corrected gently. "What brought them was this. When you're good to one of us, you're good to all of us." Mia didn't know how to respond to that. The weight of it settled deep inside her in a way that felt warm and powerful. Later, after closing up, she walked to the bus stop with the envelope from Elaine still tucked safely in her bag. The air was crisp. Streetlights cast soft circles of gold on the pavement. Cars rolled by with a low hum. She thought back to the beginning of all this, the rain, the frantic lunch rush, the trembling old man who walked into the diner unnoticed by everyone except her. She had acted without thinking, without hesitation, without expecting anything. She had simply been human. And somehow, that one moment had shifted everything. Her phone buzzed with a new comment on the video, but she didn't check it. She didn't need to. She knew now that what she did mattered. Not because it went viral. Not because people clapped. Not because strangers offered her jobs or wrote her messages filled with praise. It mattered because she had seen someone who needed help. And instead of turning away, she stepped forward. Sometimes that was all the world needed. She arrived home, placed her bag on the table, and pulled out the envelope again. The check wasn't just money. It was a reminder. Goodness doesn't disappear. It spreads. One person sees it, then another, then another. And before long, an entire community wakes up. She picked up her phone at last and scrolled to the newest comment under the video. It read, "She didn't just feed a man. She reminded the rest of us what being human looks like." Another comment followed. "If we had more people like her, the world would change." And then one more. "I don't know her, but I needed this story today. There's hope." And her name is Mia. Her eyes softened, but she didn't cry. This wasn't about sadness. It was about strength she didn't realize she had. The next morning, the Fenner Center would welcome her again. She would help more people, listen to more stories, and quietly hold together small pieces of someone else's world. And across town, Harbor Street Diner would continue to crumble under the weight of one man's choices. Because once a community sees someone's true nature, they don't forget it. But that was no longer her burden. Her story had moved on. It had grown bigger than one diner, one town, one mistake. It had become a reminder, a small spark in a loud world. A spark of simple, stubborn kindness. A spark that didn't need permission. A spark that would keep burning wherever she went next. Because sometimes the smallest acts echo the loudest, and sometimes the quietest heroes leave the deepest marks. Mia Rowan never wanted recognition. She never wanted praise. She never asked for a spotlight. She only asked for humanity. And in the end, she didn't just get it. She gave it. And the world answered back,